Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Today is Bump Up Day. We've got a two-part video here. It's all in one. There are two definite parts. We're going to show the bumping up of our sweet peas into, we're putting them into kind of trainer pots to grow on longer. And Denise is going to be showing you the next step in the stock bump up. So stay tuned. Okay, we germinated our sweet peas in two steps. The first step is we just put the actual seed to break its dormancy on a wet paper towel, kind of in a tray with a humidity dome over it for about 3 or 4 days. And as soon as the sweet pea started showing a little bit of a root coming out, we then planted them into 6-packs about 2 weeks ago. And they're germinated now and they're up to pretty close to their first set of true leaves. So our next step is we're going to take them from these 6-packs and we're going to transplant them into what these are rose pots. They're about 6 inches deep and they're roughly about 2.5 by 2.5 in terms of width. So this is going to give, it's an open bottom in the bottom. This is going to give the sweet pea about 3 to 4 weeks of growing time in the cool. We're going to move these guys down to our crate house once we got these guys bumped up. So it's going to be experiencing normal nighttime temperatures and daytime temperatures away from what would be a true greenhouse setting. It's going to be very close to what they'll be growing in when we plant them in the ground. So how do we do this? Well, we've got 2 steps. The first step is we're going to use some of our leaf mold soil that we harvested. Actually, it's compost soil that we harvested from below our compost pile. This is the same material we use for making JMS, and we're going to put about a handful of this or so in a solid bottom tray and fill that tray with water. Then the idea is this is going to impart to the seedlings biology that would be normally found in the soil. Then once they are soaked and they've taken that up for about 2 or 3 minutes, the next step is we're going to be putting our custom mix that we made for bumping up into the rose pots. And this is a real simple mixture. It's about half compost, 1 part vermicompost, and 2 parts peat with another part of regular size propagation grade perlite. Then we added a few minerals to it like rock dust and some rock phosphate, and basically it's pretty good for bumping things up. So it's got enough fertility in it to get these guys going for 3 or 4 weeks. It's not a super high nitrogen level, but it should be enough in addition to what we'll do for fertilizing when we fertilize in there too. So they should be growing real well in this material. So that's kind of the process. So we'll walk through and show you how we're doing it, and then we'll switch over to Denise and she'll talk about the stock. Okay, we let the sweet peas, because we knew we were going to do this today, so we kind of let them go to a little bit on the drier side, so that when we stick these guys in, we're going to take these 6-packs and we're going to put them into the water, and they're going to float for a little bit, but they should take about anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes to get ready. So we're going to know they're ready when they become heavy and the top of the 6-pack becomes moist. We'll know that the material's been wicked up pretty good. Now again, the whole idea behind this is we're putting these plants into a solution that has microorganisms that will help just give them a little boost in the root system. Now these varieties sweet peas, we've been raising them and saving our seed ourselves for quite some time, and these are just, it's a mix of colors because what we found that our customers are kind of more oriented to a nice spring bouquet type mix.
They're
And so
mostly pastels.
very on the pastel side, yeah.
You know, whites, pastels, nothing really deep. They just gravitate to the peachy, pinky, white, and a lot of them are 5 and 6 blooms per stem. We're going for, and nicely fragrant.
Yeah, and we're going to raise these guys on the cordon method again, so that will definitely help with the longer stems. You can already see like this tray here was really pretty dry on the top, and it's already starting to moisten up. So these guys are really soaking this up pretty fast, and that's a good thing. Okay, now let's move on to the next step while these guys are soaking, and we'll fill some of the pots that we're going to transplant into. Okay, one of the things about the mix is it's definitely damp when we're doing it. So you don't want to use dry mix because you go through all this effort of making sure your plants are all hydrated. But the one thing that happens is if you start out with dry mix, the watering is going to be more difficult because you want the watering, when we initially water these guys in, we're going to use some worm tea on them, and we want that to really absorb into the mix. A dry mix, like if you're using dry peat moss that's been sitting inside of a barn or something and it hasn't really had any moisture to it, using that straight out would be a problem because the material will be more like repelling water than absorbing water for a while, and you might end up with like the bottom of the pot being dry. So you don't want that. So we want even moisture all the way through. So these are an open bottom type, but still the material will pack into it pretty nice. And just kind of use our fingers just to kind of pack it down. And then we're going to leave a little divot in the top.
How full?
We're filling it. It's going to be filled pretty much up to the top. We'll put the transplant in here, and then we'll pack a little bit more around the top, so it's going to be filled to the top. So that's kind of what the look of it's going to look like. Now it's been about 3 to 5 minutes, and these guys are all looking really pretty damp. It's almost glistening on top, so we're just about ready to go ahead and do it. All right, these guys have been soaking for about 5 minutes now, so we can start pulling them out. So we're going to start with this 6-pack. As I said, our labeling system is these are called sweet peas, so that's about as high-tech as we got. So we can just kind of gently pull them out. And you can see there's a root right here. It's not bad. There's lots of moisture in here, so these guys are really, really nice and hydrated. And I'm just going to pack a little extra material around it. And that's the first one. Okay, some folks may wonder, like, why are they using plastic 6-packs now instead of the soil blocks? Because they've got all these videos on soil blocks. We have migrated to using the 6-packs instead of the 2-inch blocks, or the 1.5-inch blocks actually. And the reason behind it is we loved the 2-inch blocks and the 1.5-inch blocks, but they were too labor intensive, even with a stand-up blocker, to be able to keep up and make enough of them quick enough. It also required a little more physical energy to make them than it would be to filling these 6-packs. These are not the normal 6-packs that you would get when you're buying bedding plants at like Home Depot or something. These are actually a heavier plastic. And this is the 3rd year on these guys that we have used these. And they're really easy to get materials out. And you can see that the size, if you get it out at the right time, you don't get too much root bound. Although the roots do tend to go to the outside of the plug, it's still in pretty good shape. And so in a perfect world, we'd love to use soil blocks, but it's just, for us, it's just not effective on an economical sense. So we still use the soil blocks for starting just about every small seed that we have, which is the vast majority of our flowers. And that still works excellently because we can do 300 of those in like no time at all. So sometimes you have to make compromises in order to maintain efficiency. And And it's kind of, I wish we could have found a better way to make them work, but it just didn't fit into our system. So these guys actually come out pretty easy. And like I said, we're trying to get them in fairly deep so they're not too leggy. Now we can get 35 of these guys in a crate, and these are bulb crates, and these are the half-size bulb crates. But the nice thing about them is they got a handle on them on both sides, so we can easily pick it up and carry it around, and so they fit just perfect in there. Okay, once we fill this crate, we get these guys all transplanted. Then we'll move on to making some worm tea for watering them in, and we'll show you how we do that.
Okay, here I am in the greenhouse with the stock that we seeded on the 11th of January. They germinated on the 15th of January, and here it is. I don't know when this is going to be produced, this video, but it's the 28th of January. And as you can see, they're kind of big. I probably should have done the bump up about 3, maybe 4 days ago when they were a little smaller, but things get in the way, and so I'm going to do it now and probably end up putting it in the plug tray a little deeper to get them a little bit, some of that height pulled down into the soil block. It looks like I got fairly good germination. I'm always hoping for 90 plus, and there's a lot in here, but I can see some squares that have not germinated. This is the iron series, and they're a one and done cut, like I mentioned in the past video, and they are 55% doubles. So there's singles that are going to be in this group. In the past, I have tried to select for doubles because I originally thought that all the florists and designers really wanted to work with the doubles, the really puffy ones with the double flowers all the way up, and singles do just kind of these little individual flowers along the stalk, stem stock, and there is some documentation on how to select for doubles. And so the difference is, first off, you when they first come up with their cotyledon leaves, you put them somewhere, chill them. One of our would be our cooler, or somewhere that, or even in a refrigerator, and get them really chilled. And after they've already come up, and the purpose of that is they change colors. I have done that in the past and found no difference in color. And so that didn't work for me, and maybe we're not chilling them enough, or I don't know. It didn't work for me. I couldn't pick it from color. The second thing that they indicate is that a single has kind of deformed leaves, and I have one right here I believe would be a single, and somewhere in here I got a butter knife that will help me pull it out. Okay, this is what kind of a deformed one looks like. I don't know if that's focusing or if it's focusing only on me, but that's a deformed one, I think. The problem with that is that one time I took out all of those and had only the ones that look like a true stock. Now that was probably a weirdo, but this one looks like a true stock right there. And I took out all the oddballs and the weirdos and stuff. And then we only planted the ones that I thought were, going to be our doubles. And it turned out that there were still a bunch of singles that were planted, even though I had gone through the whole tray and dumped out probably 40% of them. So that didn't work for me, and I was kind of disappointed on that. But they say that the singles are usually a darker color. These all look the same to me. They are deformed or fused, which I showed you, and they're shorter. And okay, so some of them that I see in here that are shorter don't look deformed. The doubles are supposed to be light green. Okay, there's one that's really light green here, and it's deformed. They're also large oval cotyledons, which is the one like I showed you on this one. So this looks like a nice double, and they're taller and they germinate faster. But all these guys germinated practically at the same time in about 4 days. I mean, there's a few stragglers, but they all just came on at once. So selecting is difficult for me. So then I contacted some of the designers that we sell to and asked them, do you have a problem with getting single stock? Not as the big poofy ones. And I was told, no, we love them. We would take those. Oh, thank goodness. Because I just can't figure out, the difference. So they love the doubles, but they love the singles too. And so we just plant them all. And they said that, the doubles are really poofy and fill in arrangements and, nice height and, really fill in an arrangement or a bouquet. And they're really fragrant, so it might be too fragrant. Where I find, and they have said that the singles seem to be a little less fragrant, and so they use those. They're a little more delicate. They are not a big statement in a bouquet, but more like just a little accent of whatever color you're growing, little apricot wings in a bouquet. And so they love these as an alternative, a little less fragrant and a little less bold in a bouquet. So I stopped selecting. I just will bump them all up. And so I'm going to bump up whatever's here into 72 or 6 packs. There'll be 72. 300 possibles will go into approximately 4 trays. I don't think I'm going to have a full 4th tray, but I always prep for a 4th tray just in case. This will also be a grown on cool from now on after. We might spend a day or two here in our greenhouse, but after that we'll be taking them down to the crate house. Part of the back of the crate house is sort of what we call the propagation, growing on spot, and it'll be cool but protected. It won't get beat up by the rain or anything like that, and hopefully we can keep the cats off of them. But they'll grow on there until they get to size, and then we'll put them in the field or into one of our hoop houses. So I just need to get my tray ready for bumping, or the plug trays all filled up so I can start bumping. But that was the explanation that I wanted to give that would tell you about selecting for doubles. Okay, I have the tray all filled with soil. There's 12 of these 6 packs. they're like any other kind of plug tray, but for some reason they seem just a little bigger, so it allows them to grow on a little longer. I took and just poked my fingers in each one of the cells just to make a kind of a dibble for the stock. I got my handy dandy butter knife, and now I'm gonna start just pulling them out with a butter knife and just placing them in the plug tray. This is riveting work, but you can see that I have roots coming out, which that's good, nice sign. And make sure they're in there nice and placed well. And I'll do a couple more, and then I'll just kind of work on it. So it's hard to do this filming and being part of doing the job, so to speak. Lots of roots on the side, and just getting them bumped up. And add a little extra soil around these so that all the roots are nice and covered. Just have a little bit of soil in one of our handy dandy coffee cups, coffee container things that we always seem to be using for everything. And usually I'm a little faster than this, but hey, this is the first bump up that I've done for this season, so kind of slow. There's the first 6-pack, and like I said, there's 11 more to do, and I'll have 72 of these stock in a tray. The last 3 for this tray. And what I am planting or bumping up is iron cherry, which is nice pink. Not super pink, it's kind of a light pink. But it's one that's really popular with our designers. So we've got the last one in. So there's 72 bumped up into bigger plugs, and I'll just have to get a label in and get them watered, and they're gonna go, they'll stay out here in the greenhouse for a while. I still have more, so they'll go into the next tray, and I'll make sure that I have got it labeled, you know, for the extra. And then I'll have a count of how many I have. I can see that I have probably 7 blank that didn't fail to germinate, and a couple of super goofies, and I don't know if I'll plant those, but it looks like on this group I'm probably about 82-83%, and I'll record that on my phone. We have an app that keeps track of how much we planted, what germinated when, how much, and how much gets bumped up and goes into the field. So I'll have a count of germination rate and everything, actual germination rate. So on to the next tray.
Okay, so as the last step, what we're going to do is we're going to make some worm extract. It's not really a worm tea in a sense because it's not brewed at all for any given length of time, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a healthy scoop of our worm castings, and we're going to use the power of the water from our nozzle, and we're going to basically knock the stuff, the finer materials, into solution, which would also include any of the bacteria and good things that are in the worm casting itself. These worm castings are pretty fresh, so they still got a few little extra worms in it, but basically all I want to do is I just want to get a good scoop that has quite a bit in it. You know, we're talking about like it's a handful, and I'm going to put it into this mesh bag. And this is the same mesh bags we use for making JMS, or the paint strainer bags that you can get from a home center. And once I got that in there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this nozzle set kind of like on a strong stream, and I'm going to use that to basically knock the material out and create a couple of gallons of worm tea extract. Again, I'm using the term inconsistently. It's not really a tea, it's an extract. Because all we're doing is mechanically knocking the stuff out, keeping the solids, the bigger stuff inside the mesh bag, and then what you're getting is the good stuff in the actual liquid itself. And I'll just do this back and forth until pretty much everything in the mesh bag is done. Okay, pretty much the only thing left in here are some solids and some materials that couldn't just flow through. So that's basically done at this point. And then what I'm going to do is fill this bucket up till it's about halfway, and then the material is good to use. Okay, so as you can see, the material is a nice deep color. It's full of humates and full of good bacteria and other biology in there from the worm castings itself. And this is good to go. So you're not holding this over. So if you make this stuff, you want to use it. Okay, you don't want it to hang around, because basically then you're going to start getting some growths in it that you probably, you're going to lose the effectiveness of it. The whole point is this is fresh. This is, you've taken it from the castings itself and you've knocked this stuff into solution. And it's just use a watering can or any method that you have to apply it to your seedlings. This is a quick and dirty, easy fertilizer you can use anytime for your seedlings, even at transplant or while they're growing on before you transplant. So it's full of nutrients and it's just really simple to make. So let's start watering. Okay, so we got it in our little watering can. Now this looks pretty dinky, but we just basically use it in the greenhouse for light operations. And we're just making sure that these guys are all soaked in really good. And the whole point on this is this helps these guys with any transplant shock or anything of that nature. So it should be good to go, and we'll put these down in the area to grow on.
How many times will you worm tea?
I'll probably use the worm tea.
Worm extract.
Worm extract. I'll use it probably just about every time I water.
For how long?
Well, these will grow on for about 3 to 4 weeks. If it's that long, it just depends on how fast they start really rolling. And then I'm anticipating we're going to be putting these in the ground in the hoop house near the end of February. And so we'll be using it at that point. And then after that, we're going to switch they'll be bigger, more vigorous plants, and we'll be switching to the liquid fertilizer, the Jadam liquid fertilizer at that point, if they need any at all. So that's just kind of a great way to get, minerals, biology, and that. And one of the things about this worm extract is there's no odors to it at all. So as an example, if you want to use this on your house plants, it's a great thing to use. It doesn't have any bugs in it. There's no worms in it because they all got caught in the mesh bag. There's no eggs or anything like that, so nothing's going to hatch in anything. But it really, we've used it on house plants really successfully. So it's just been really easy to use and great. Okay, so we're going to finish this job, and then that should wrap things up.
Yeah.
It's running, you realize.
Oh. So we got everything bumped up, huh?
Yeah, I got all of mine done. It's not full 4 trays. I think my germination rate is about between 85 and 90% on all 3. I'm not sure. Some of them were pretty tiny and questionable, but I put them in just in case.
So how does that compare to average?
That's
low.
It's just a hair low. This is I think that I'm getting caught this year with old seed. My fault. And although stock's supposed to last for 10 years, and I think we've got them stored fairly well, I don't think that I'm getting the germination that I usually have. And I think that's another video into the future.
The ones that did come up came up fast, because that was what, like 3 or 4 days.
4 days.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And they were a little leggy for the bump up, but I think they'll do well, and I'll show you give you a snapshot of what they look like. How about yours?
We ended up with 123 sweet pea plants bumped up out of, I think we started with 140 in the cells. 144.
And I did the stratification, what do you call it? And I had 158.
Oh, that's what you started with, the seeds?
Yeah.
So some of the seed just wasn't viable, and that's kind of why we go through this process, so we're not, spending too much time. We kind of try to pre-sprout those guys, and that gets rid of a lot of the duds right there. I was just kind of more selective. If the thing didn't really look like it, like it had a lot more time and needed to grow, I just said, forget it.
Well, and some of the seed was saved, and we're not.
Well, actually, most of it wasn't it?
Well, there was some that we had saved from another grower, but some of it was our own seed that we saved. And
well, the one thing we did notice, the seed that we saved
was bigger.
It was bigger.
A lot bigger.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's a variety thing or what.
And we don't know if those were our seeds necessarily that didn't germinate or not.
Yeah, so we weren't very scientific.
Yeah, we weren't very careful on it. Maybe in the future we should be.
I don't know. Sweet peas, we're just trying to get a mass of them, with so many. We're trying to plan out about a 50-foot row inside the tunnel that we're cordon up. And that should give us, since we're significantly smaller because of the pandemic, we're planting less. And so we're going to concentrate on trying to get as best quality as we can. So that's kind of why we culled out. If it didn't look like the plant wasn't really vigorous at this point, I mean, these things were started like in the 5th and the 7th of January, and today's the 28th. They should be looking pretty vigorous. And so that's what we try to go for, is the ones that either had a really good root system when we pulled them out, or the top was good and the roots were good. So if it had a good root system, I kind of tended to save it. But mostly I went with the ones that were showing vigorous top growth as well as good roots.
So that's this week in what we're working on here on the farm. It's kind of a bump up week.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll probably plant these things in the field here in about 3 or 4 weeks. So that'll be kind of a next follow-up. And I guess we should just say thanks for watching today. Right. Stay safe, and bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.